as we all get a little older and a little further down our career, we sort of look at things a little bit, different. I'm involved in some leadership programs locally where I live in Pennsylvania. I think it's, as I've started getting into the e-learning, and this is a business that, quite honestly, I just kind of stumbled upon, but I love it, right? And it's something that I've become very passionate about over the last couple of years. So I've joined these leadership groups. I really enjoy it, getting out with other people, really understanding, what others are going through. I mean, I think one of the key things that I'm taking away with some of that is, because I work from home most of the time and a lot of people are, out and about with others, everybody comes in with a different sort of problems or challenges, whether they be, work or personal, et cetera. But at the end of the day, we're all there together and we're all there to, to do the same thing.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros podcast. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Hey, Josh.
Hey, that's my catchphrase.
I know. I wanted to see how it sounded. It's going fantastically. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for asking. Question for you.
Yes, sir.
Would you consider yourself a risk taker?
Moderately.
Go on.
Moderately. So, yes, I did start a business. That was a risk. But I also feel like I did it in a very safe way because I knew before I left Universal, I already knew that I had work lined up. So it wasn't like I left Universal and then just had nothing and had to build it from there. So there was a long ramp up to me starting a business and being able to leave a day job. So yes, there's risk in that, but it was maybe calculated.
Okay.
That's why I say moderately. How about yourself?
I'd say maybe I used to be more so. Now I feel like there's like a little bit more at stake, whether it's like if it's starting a new business or going skydiving or something like that, which I feel like in actuality is probably a relatively low risk activity. It's like high risk, but also like very regulated.
Yes.
But then I also think of like the industry that we're in, which looks like it's a high risk activity to do. And all in all, it really is not based on the statistics. So you could be very risk averse and say, yeah, you know what, theme and amusement parks. I'm gonna go ride roller coasters because I don't take a lot of risks.
Well, and probably because I know the safety record of our industry, when I get on a roller coaster, I feel safe.
Yes, me too.
So I know that that's not much of a risk. Is it a risk for me having fun or liking the coaster? Like that's a whole different conversation, right?
True. You gotta wait in line. You're risking time that you're not getting back. Hey.
Oh, we could go down a rabbit hole with that kind of risk. But to answer your original question, I would say, just in general, kind of moderate.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of risk and danger. Like sometimes I'll just like take the phone off my case and walk around for the day. Like,
oh man,
yeah.
wow, you are playing with fire.
So the reason I ask is our guest today, Marc Dixon. He is the managing director and co-founder USA of Study Academy USA. Talks about learning to take risks as being arguably, I would say some of the best career advice that he can give. And as he shares his career story and largely within the attractions industry, the risks that he has taken that ultimately turned out to be positive and successful.
Absolutely. So that kind of theory, or not theory, that thought process of taking a risk, as you hear him talk about his career, you can definitely hear how it has helped him progress into different areas and, different disciplines within the attractions industry. He also talks about technology and attractions. So from a couple of different vantage points, he started off in ride photos. Now he's focused on e-learning, which are, two vastly different technologies, but all still serving the folks in the attractions industry.
For me, it was just a lot of fun to geek out about Ride Photo because I spent some time in that space as well with one of the same companies that he was with Pixolve. We weren't there at the same time, but we were able to kind of talk about some cool memories and experiences from being in that time. And feel like in 2026, you can't talk about technology without talking about AI, artificial intelligence. So it was brought up. Don't worry, it was not an overly tech-heavy conversation, but I would say it's relevant to everyone who is tuning into the podcast here of what is AI's purpose in the industry, and just share it as far as best ways to use it and some of the ways advising not to use it.
So is it time to dial in those prompts and get to this interview with Mark?
You're gonna say like dial in like on the rotary phone. Like,
That's a different technology.
Yeah, let's fire it up. Let's go.
Hey, Mark, welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, Matt. How are you? Thank you.
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for asking. It's so great to have you on the show today. Can you first start off by telling us a little bit about your career to this point?
Yeah. Do you want the short or the long version?
It's up to you.
Long
I
version.
think like a lot of us, we have a pretty unique story. My career in the attractions industry started in the mid '90s. I answered an ad in the want ads back in the day for a job out at a local theme park here in Salt Lake City, Utah, where I'm visiting at the moment, to work at Lagoon. And it looked pretty cool, and I was looking for a career change, so I answered it. And that's where I started. It was a small company that was bringing ride photography to the Americas. They were out of Australia, and Lagoon was on their target. So I took a job with those guys, and kind of snowballed from there. Ended up out on the East Coast working for them, all the Paramount parks, etc. But I was born and bred in the early days of ride photography.
Keep going. Would love to hear about
Oh, keep going. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So I spent about 2.5 years with those guys. Rave Reviews was the name of the company. They were bought out by Kodak. I think it was about 1998, and I actually went to work for Kodak and spent about 20 years of my career with Kodak in the event imaging solutions division. Again, a variety of roles, from engineering, service and support, managing all the support for the seasonal theme parks, and at the time, then I moved into an account management role. So started working through the account management, working with our clients, etc. And then, a couple of months after getting promoted to that account management, they came to me and said, we're doing away with the account managers. And I'm thinking, okay, well, what does that mean for me? But we think you'd be great at sales, and I had never done sales before. And I think we're going about 22 years ago now, 22 years ago, something along those lines. And they said to me, and we want you to go up to New York City and sort of head up that region, so you can imagine, cutting your teeth in sales in New York City was quite fun. But that's where I ended up going. I ended up moving up to the Northeast, really, focused on the Northeast region, supported the growth there in New York City for many, many years with Kodak, helped with some channel partnerships in Latin America, Mexico, Brazil. So I got to do a little bit of travel out of that, which I really enjoyed. And then, I made a change. I think it was around 2016, 2017. And jumped over to another company, a UK company called Pixolve, which I'm sure a lot of people will be familiar with. And that was sort of my entry into more of the European market and connections within that region. And then, much like everybody else, got laid off or cut loose during COVID because everything was shut down. So took most of 2020 off. Enjoyed sitting around the house doing nothing like everybody else. Was hoping to ride my motorcycle across the country, but couldn't do that because everything was shut down. And then I jumped into some UK businesses with some of my founders over there and some of my investors, and worked for a company called Vism Technologies, which was centered around ride video. So I was there for a couple of years, still associated with them as a board member. And then we've sort of segued into some other technology companies with the same group of investors, the same team there, Icon Imaging, Razor, BGR, which is another company, and Study Academy USA. So through those connections and a lot of my partnerships there, I've been able to expand into some other areas. which is e-learning technology, but all around attractions based. So that's the sort of the short long version, I guess.
Yeah, awesome. A lot to unpack here, and really want to jump into Study Academy, but definitely want to talk about ride photo for a minute or two here, because
Yeah,
I also had some experience working for Pixolve. In fact, I've got my hard hat there from Legoland, Florida.
yeah,
And I remember, for me, this was like one of the coolest moments of my career, where I was standing, steel toe boots, got my hard hat on in the ride envelope of the roller coaster, helping determine where the camera is going to go. And
correct. Yeah.
I just remember thinking, like, I get to decide where the camera goes on the roller coaster. And I'm wondering to kind of tap into that part of your brain, and if there are any kind of key moments or kind of signature anchor memories from that time in photo.
Yeah, look, I think, looking back on that, what I love, if I go all the way back to ride photography with rave reviews, I mean, very, very similar, Josh. I mean, we would go in, we were placing cameras, installing the equipment, setting everything up. We were hiring the staff, training the managers, getting everything up and running, making sure they had all their own supplies, packing up the vehicle, driving across the country, and doing the next one, right? And we did that year after year. But I love that. I mean, that was some of the favorite, some of the best parts of my career is, installing those cameras, picking out those locations, identifying sensors, hoping you didn't mess it up, right? Because, what skills were you given to identify a camera on a roller coaster early on?
Yeah.
Well, and I'm curious, Mark, now it seems like almost every attraction experience, even outside of rides, has some sort of photo element to it. You walk into
Yeah.
an aquarium, and the first thing they do is they put you in front of a green screen, take your picture, and then on your way out, you can buy your picture. So can you talk a little bit about kind of the evolution that you've seen in whether it's on-ride photography or just, pictures being available for guests in the attractions industry?
Yeah, look, I think in the early days, everything was very analog, right? I mean, remember we were using video cameras, and it was very, just basic technology. And I remember a few years into it when we got our first color system, and there were a few companies that were doing that, but we were a smaller company, and then computers were actually getting fast enough to take, to store the images and go digital. So it's been a really interesting journey for me in watching that from just basically an analog to expanding beyond ride photography. But different types of photography have always been there. I mean, everybody remembers the little keyhole viewers, right? And what a manual operation that was. So it was just a natural evolution, I think, as people saw other opportunities. I mean, we're incredibly lucky that we get to capture those smiles and those experiences, right? So there are so many opportunities to do that. And Matt, you make an interesting point, standing in front of a green screen. Well, we're not using green screens anymore, right? And I remember the technology of green screens, and back when we would do, a Kodak at the NBC store, and we would take your picture with a green screen in the back and put you in these different sets, and you had to go in there and trace around it and cut everything out. And then they got a little bit better and a little bit smarter. Some companies are still using the green screen, but most now are just using background removal, right? And it's incredible. So the evolution of where things have started and where they're going, and they're still changing every day with AI and reels and different type of digital content that's being delivered. So it's fun to watch.
Well, part of it too is also the evolution of the consumer camera and the way in which they have to be able to share it. At the time that that I was with Pixolve at Legoland, it was 2011, so people were on. People had smartphones with cameras, and we had social media, but it was still, by comparison to today, it was very much in its infancy. And I remember the CEO at the time was really looking forward, kind of into the future of being able to say, well, okay, people need to be able to have more digital access to it to be able to share online. And then it kind of became this, well, everybody's got the smartphone. You can take a picture that is in today's age probably just as good as you can as the camera that's capturing you, in front of the green screen. But being able to say, like, no, you still need to buy this product, but really having to reposition it.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting, Josh, is you remember when cell phones and smartphones started becoming really popular, everybody said, "Well, it's going to kill the souvenir imaging business, right? You guys are dead." I mean, I heard that so many times, but it just hasn't happened, right? People still love these experiences. You're not taking a picture of yourself on a roller coaster. You're not taking a video. I mean, some people are, they are taking, the 360s or the GoPros on the rides. But you're also not getting the same type of content, right? And it's that experience. I mean, I remember years ago, being in Hawaii and going to a luau, right, with the wife and kids and everything. And it was just so slick the way that they pulled you over and they said, put all your stuff right here. Everybody get over here. Kids are on the stools and little ukuleles and everybody had to lay on and took a photo and everything and moved you right through. And I was like, well, that was really efficient in the end. And they just had this really beautiful photo with all the colors in the background. And I said, and we bought it. And I said, that's how it's done, man. Because, if they got me, they're doing it the right way. Right. So it's about experience. It's about the content. It's about the memories as well. I mean, it's really something that I think people miss. Yeah.
So, Mark, thinking about your career to this point, there's been a lot of technology, right? And certainly in the attractions industry, but technology is everywhere. So, what
Yeah.
keeps you kind of focused on attractions?
Look, I just love it, man. I mean, as I said earlier on, it's we get to work in such a fun environment, and people when you try to tell them what you do, and you guys probably go through this as well, and say, so what do you do? And you explain it. Sometimes they just don't get it, and I say, look, I get to work and go where you want to vacation and visit, and I think that's what's really special. Yeah, we get to provide smiles and great experiences and memories, and it is truly for me one of the best industries that you could ever imagine working in, because it's just fun. It's fun. It's roller coasters, it's attractions, it's museums, it's aquariums. It's you're selling fun, and so that's what I love about it, and that's what I've always loved about it, and probably what's kept me around for 30 plus years.
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
And in addition to technology, you are also a founder as well, and that being one of the more popular titles in your LinkedIn profile. What is it about the entrepreneurial process and the startup aspect that really excites you and motivates you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, and it's probably one I sort of ask myself a lot, where I'm at and where I'm going, and after COVID and having taken that, sort of a year off and thinking about what I wanted to do, I had some other opportunities to go work for other companies or some bigger companies and get back into that corporate role. And it's something that I really considered. And I had to make a decision a few years ago, am I going to do that or am I going to continue down this path? I had a great group of investors and, founders, advisors out of the UK. They just kept saying, mate, let's do this, let's do that, let's work on this. Here's a great idea. We should pursue this. So I had to make a decision, right? Am I going to go for, let's call it that comfortable corporate position where you're getting the paycheck, you've got these certain benefits and everything's going to be there? Or am I going to kind of continue to go out on my own and trust myself and do that? And that's what I've done. And I got to tell you, I love that. I love building new businesses. I found a little bit of a niche market. I think there's a lot of European companies that are looking for a bit of a footprint, representation, and support in America. And we've been able to bring that to them. So I enjoy it. I get to wake up and look myself in the mirror and say, what are we doing today? So.
Well, and Mark, I would think there's a lot of people that would take it the other way and say, I would rather have that kind of comfortable, not that comfortable is bad, but that more steady job kind of going forward. So there's certainly some risk in what you have done and those decisions you've made. Can you talk about maybe the comfort level that you have with risk to know that, hey, this is going to be okay. I'm going to take a risk. I'm going to go out there, but things are going to be okay at the end of the day.
Yeah, another great one. I mean, I think there are good days and there are bad days, right? Where you look at yourself and you think, man, should I have gone this way or should I have gone that way? And then there are times that the validation just pops up. You look at a company that maybe you had spoken to and you see some changes they are going through, or you hear about some layoffs that are happening within the industry, which we never want to hear about. We never want to hear about people being downsized, et cetera, but it happens. And I don't worry about the downsizing of it, right? I mean, because it's me and it's my investors and it's my team that works with me. But I have to get up every morning and brush myself off and make sure that I'm motivated and ready to go. And there are days that it's you kind of question what you're doing, but you just got to keep going forward. So it is. But I like being able to sort of set my own schedule. I get up, I work, I show up where I need to show up and support myself. So, yeah.
Great.
All right, so let's jump into Study Academy. Would love to hear all about it, really how it came about. Tell us from its origins to today.
Yeah. So, going through this sort of startup founding journey, working with, you'll probably hear me as we go through this, a gentleman by the name of Paul Kennedy, PK. He's out of the UK. I met PK while working at Pixel. He was their chief people officer. He was a part owner of a company called Well Training out of the UK. Really wanted to look at setting up well training in the US. And we did this a couple of years ago. And I'd always been in touch with PK. He sat on the board of ISM, so he's one of our non-exec directors, et cetera. I literally talk to the guy daily. I mean, he's an advisor, friend, colleague. But he really wanted to be in the U.S. with well training. So we had set up that company. We were doing some work with IAAPA as one of the preferred educational partners. A lot of that was in person. It's some virtual training, change management, etc. And during that time, we were approached by a company, another UK company called Study Academy, that really specializes in e-learning. Two dynamic guys out of Birmingham, John Loveday and Paul Hood. They're the co-founders and owners of Study Academy UK. And I would encourage you guys to probably get them on the show because they've got an amazing stories. These guys are ex-military guys, that really came out of the military looking for that next journey for them. And they started Study Academy there. And, they picked up the phone, they called us, they told us what they were doing. They showed us the programs that they were putting together. And I got to tell you, it was the product, but it was the people behind it. These guys are just dynamic. They're go-getters. They're, just really great guys. Said, mate, we really want to be in the US. So as we were going through that journey and looking at it and, having discussions with IAAPA and other needs in the industry around e-learning, we said, okay, well, let's set up shop in the US and let's go for it. That segued into our deal with IAAPA, which was our first sort of flagship customer, to build out a brand new LMS for them, which we launched, I guess 2 weeks ago now. Was it last week? It's, time flying by. But also building out some of the e-learning courses for them. So, as part of this journey in building that company, we've got Adria Gibbs as one of our partners. So we brought her as a partner. I think a lot of people in the industry know her. Very dynamic, has been around forever, just knows the industry as well. So we brought together a really nice team in the US. We looked at what the value proposition was. We looked at the content that they had, looked at what we needed to build. And we centered that around attractions to start because that's what we know. That's what Adria knows. That's what I know. And I think what you'll see over the next 12, 24, and 36 months is Study Academy USA will continue to grow in the attractions industry, but beyond, right? There's safety, there's compliance, there's finance, there's warehousing. So we are looking at a lot of different opportunities there. But, we're relatively new. We've got some nice contracts. We've got, again, IAAPA is the big one for us. We're super happy about that. And a relatively new company. And we're very excited.
So, Mark, you mentioned the IAAPA partnership, and a lot of our listeners are IAAPA members. So, wondering if we can go a little bit deeper into what that offering looks like and what the benefit would be for IAAPA members.
Yeah, so I think and I don't want to speak for IAAPA, but we've got a great partner over there, Aviva Ezring. That when we sat down with her just about a year ago and talked about what were the goals for IAAPA and what they wanted to see and their focus on education and education within the attractions industry. And she asked us a lot of questions and told us what she needed. Yes, we can do that. Yes, that's what we do. Yes, we can fulfill that. So we ticked all the boxes and we started going down that journey with IAAPA to build that out. But as IAAPA continues to build out their educational side of what they do, it's been, incredibly important for us to support them. So that's what we've been doing. We see that the educational piece of that is incredibly important. And I think, within attractions and, we've always talked about some of the things that we've experienced in the roles that we have. And sometimes you see this where people get promoted by necessity. So who's the best supervisor? Somebody left and we just shove them in there. But we want to make sure that we're preparing people for that, right? And giving them the right tools and providing them with the content that will help them further their career.
Can you talk to a little bit of maybe even I guess the value of e-learning kind of simplifies sort of everything I'm thinking of in this here, but being able to really, it's differentiated from in-person classroom style learning and in terms of ways that it maybe connects kind of with newer, more digitally native generations, but really as far as saying that that attractions in particular should be moving towards more towards e-learning compared to maybe facilitated instruction or classroom style or manual SOP driven, really as where e-learning fits in just with the full mix.
Yeah, again, great question, Josh. And I think given your experience and what you do with in person, I think in person's great. And it'd be great if we could go there and be there for everybody all the time in person and do the training and sit down and look people face to face. I mean, I'm a little old school. I love face to face. I love meetings that are face to face, right? I would do that over a Zoom call or a phone call any day. But a lot of these seasonal parks, and when they're hiring and have to hire hundreds of thousands of people each year to ramp up for the seasonal business, it does give them another opportunity. It gives them other tools to make sure that they can get people the training that they need and get it in front of them, and at a time and a pace that works for them, and it allows them to do it at, as you said, mobile devices, online, etc., and get to the masses, right? So it's just another tool for that. And I think they complement each other. I think you're still doing some of this in person, or you're doing onboarding in person, but it does give you the tools to give them sort of post that, right? So it's a constant learning, and it's a constant educational piece where they can sit there and they can do that at their time, and it's measurable for us, right? So we're able to track people, how many people are taking the courses, how they scored on the courses, allows you to look at that data and say, okay, there are some areas that we need to work on here. And I think it's those measurable results that you get out of e-learning that maybe you're not getting out of some of the in-person stuff, right? So you're able to go back and track that and look at some of the areas that you need to focus on.
Well, I think one of the other things in terms of that measurement that it does is it says, okay, if this person has answered all the questions correctly, right, then they have the knowledge. And now it's about maybe training them in the moment of how to now interact with that guest in person, right? So to your point,
Right.
it is kind of a blended process.
I think it is. I really do. I mean, you may be great at e-learning, you may be great at reading these and answering the questions and taking the test, but if you're not smiling at somebody or you're looking at your phone when they walk up, right? I mean, it's a little bit of a different approach. So yeah, in person is definitely has a place, and I think will always be there.
Yeah. And it sounds like you're saying, you cannot simply rely on one method as being the end all be all, that in person is great. You can't do all in person. E-learning is great, but it also needs to be blended with the in-person follow-up as well. It cannot be simply great. We have this training tool now that burden of training is completely off our backs altogether.
Yeah, yeah. And look, and some of the compliance stuff, right, where there are certain knowledges that you do or certain things that you need them to know, and certain pieces. E-learning is great, right? Some of that is just great for them to go through and learn specific tasks and specific rules, etc. So it does have a place there. But I agree. I think it's a nice blend, and we're looking at that, right? We're having discussions on how we can blend in some of the in-person stuff, and then post that, provide them with some e-learning tools once the employees or the staff have left.
So, Mark, I want to turn back to kind of your journey a little bit, because one of the things I know you're deeply committed to is ongoing learning and leadership development. And I'm curious just how you continue to learn for yourself and then also help other people along their journey.
Yeah, look, as we all get a little older and a little further down our career, we sort of look at things a little bit, different. I'm involved in some leadership programs locally where I live in Pennsylvania. I think it's, as I've started getting into the e-learning, and this is a business that, quite honestly, I just kind of stumbled upon, but I love it, right? And it's something that I've become very passionate about over the last couple of years. So I've joined these leadership groups. I really enjoy it, getting out with other people, really understanding, what others are going through. I mean, I think one of the key things that I'm taking away with some of that is, because I work from home most of the time, and a lot of people are, out and about with others, everybody comes in with a different sort of problems or challenges, whether they be, work or personal, etc. But at the end of the day, we're all there together, and we're all there to do the same thing. So for me, I love that. I love learning. I love being part of these leadership programs. My legacy, I'd love for us to be able to provide to the industry some great content, some great tools, and be remembered for that, and continue to help people, really the ones, that are coming into the industry, and support them in their growth. I think one of the things that is really key about this, like us on this call, many of us have started at a young age in this industry and have been around for a really long time. I didn't have that in the beginning, so I sort of figured it out on my own. If we can give back to them, I think we've done a good job.
Hmm.
I'm curious then to kind of piggyback on this of sort of continuous learning, the jump from ride photo into e-learning technology, into LMS technology. I'm curious as far as what that learning curve was like for you, and what through lines really allowed for them to be connected.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know that there was a connection between the two, other than attractions. We came across this when we had the opportunity with the Study Academy folks. We really looked at it and said, first, is there a need in the industry, right? Because this is the industry I know, and that's where I'm going to take it. And we found that there was. We found that there was a desire for it, and we found that it was a bit of kind of an open space, that there weren't a lot of people doing that. So we took the opportunity, we looked at it, and then obviously, bringing Adria Gibbs into the mix, who's been dedicated to the attractions industry 30 plus years, like all of us. To me, that was it. I had to have the expert. She, to me, is the expert out of the group on and bringing that content and building those e-learning courses for us.
So, Mark, since we've been talking about technology, and you even mentioned AI a little bit in the beginning, where do you see kind of AI taking us in terms of whether it's online learning, or if it's ride photos, or just kind of anything that's impacting the attractions industry?
Yeah, it's a good one. I mean, I think, AI is, everybody's talking about AI, right? And how is that going to impact our industry, this industry? A lot of people saying that AI is going to, take your job. And I think in certain areas, maybe it's going to enhance, maybe it's going to replace. I don't know. I've heard the statement that, AI is not going to replace your job, but people using AI, will. Certainly in the ride photo, ride video, the capture technology, you're seeing a shift. What we talked about earlier with, going from a green screen where, that technology, you had to have a green screen to remove the background. You don't need that anymore, right? And the quality of the cuts that are coming now from taking a photo and replacing the background, regardless of what behind you. I mean, that it's unbelievable that the quality that's out there now, the enhancement of those images, the cleanup. So, where you really had to focus on taking good quality photos. Every setting on the camera had to be perfect. You can make little mistakes now, and AI will go in and clean up those images, replace the background, and everybody looks beautiful and smiling, and etc. I think that's going to continue. I think a lot of people are going to continue to put money into or invest into AI around the capture technology. I know that we are doing that, and we're looking at some different technologies and some things that we would like to do to enhance it. In terms of the educational piece, to me, it's a natural fit of looking at that data that's coming through, right? Taking that data out of an LMS, putting it into AI, and giving you the results and giving you sort of what that looks like and the areas you need to work on. I mean, it's already happening, and it's something that we're looking at.
From the educational piece, I've gained a lot of value from being able to leverage AI tools, not to create, but to
Yeah.
enhance and remove a lot of administrative burdens. So I built an online course last year. That's it's like 5 hours of video content, and then when I wanted to create an assessment for that course, well, I can think about, okay, how do I create a 25, 30 question assessment? Or I can take the entire narrative of the course and have that repurposed, and it's my assessment because it's taking the work that
Right.
I did. And so that's one of the things that I think of when I think of, well, how am I using AI? I'm not using it to create, I'm using it to repurpose what I've already created.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's great, Josh. I mean, we're the same way. We're not using AI to create for us, right? I mean, the courses that we've built were built by Adria. This is content that she's had. This is content that's been around for a very long time. That's been refined. It was in either a digital or a paper form, if you will. But we took that and we took those courses and we built them into e-learning courses. But to your point, what you can do with that and take that data sort of on the back end is look at the results and build upon that, right? By using it, it speeds things up. I mean, what we used to take hours or days is now being done in minutes.
Mhm.
Well, and really looking at it as an enhancement of what you're able to do versus replacing what you do, kind of to your point, like the
Yeah,
AI
yeah,
itself won't replace you, but the person that knows how to use it will,
right.
because they're able to be more efficient. They're able to even maybe be more creative, because I know I've plugged some things into AI and it has brought things back that I would never have thought of. Now, I had to tweak it a little bit to still make it my
100%.
own voice, but
Yeah.
it was still something that was very different from what I had maybe thought of on my own.
Yeah, and look, I love AI. We use it quite a bit in several businesses. But to your point, Matt, I think it is. I would never take something that AI kicks out and just copy paste and send it. Right? It just to me, it still has to have my voice. I want to read it. I want to look it over. I want to make sure it's communicating the message that I want, or it's using the data that we want it to. So it is about sort of figuring out and tweaking it and learning how to ask it the prompts that you need. So yeah, yeah. But I love it. I mean, it's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
You think back of the old days and what it does now.
So we talked a little bit of kind of, best ways to use it, ways to not use it, ways that you use it, ways we all use it. What are some of your fears in where it could be used that could impact the industry beyond I would say, I hate to reduce the simplicity of replacing jobs, but kind of bigger than
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, I think, I don't know that I have any fears with it. I'm always very conscious of what I use it for and making sure that if I'm having a look at something that I've written or looking at a proposal or looking at any sort of document, that it still has my voice and I'm really paying attention to it. My fear maybe is that people aren't doing that and they just, trust it 100% and move down that path. So I'm not there yet. Some others may be, but I like to make sure that what I'm using AI for and what were those tools. We're still looking at the content, or we're still looking at the results that it's producing for us, and looking it over, and making sure it communicates what we're really truly trying to say.
So for the last couple of minutes, we've been talking about AI, which is the latest and greatest thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But I also want to go back to your very first job and some of those early experiences that you had in the industry, and how you were talking about setting up the cameras and those type of things, and those lessons that we learned early. Sometimes those are still lessons that we use currently in our roles and in our jobs. So I'm curious, are there any lessons that you've taken from some of those early days that you're still using today?
Yeah. So it's funny, you guys sent me a few questions that I looked over, and that was one I kind of pondered on, and I thought about. Yeah, look, I think the biggest thing is, learning to take risks, right? I think there was always in certain jobs a level of comfort staying there. We talked about this, the corporate job, the comfort level.
Mhm.
Learn to take risks, man. Go for it. If there's something you're really passionate about and you want to try, what's the worst that can happen? So you fail and you start over and you do it again. You try something new. So you guys are entrepreneurs. You wake up and you do the same thing every day. And, you've got to get yourself out of bed and be ready to go. But you wouldn't be here if you didn't take the risk. And I think that if there was one piece of advice that I would say for the younger folks out there, take the risk, go for it. What do you have to lose?
Are there any risks that you've taken that perhaps you would have done differently if you were able to rewind?
Hmm.
Well, that's a great one. Yeah, look, I think I've learned through some of them, right? I mean, I've taken some risks where things have not worked out and have failed, or maybe they're not failures. So, they're learning opportunities is what I like to look at it. So nothing particular comes to mind, but everything doesn't always work out, right? I mean, there are opportunities where you've got to pivot a little bit and just keep going. So I get asked all the time of, well, if this doesn't work, what do you guys think? And I say, well, it's going to work. We're going to make it work, but it may not work down this path or this path, but we're going to find a path to get it there. So, I think that's just having the mindset of we're gonna find a path to make things work out. So whether it's this A, B, or C, we're going to keep pushing.
So speaking of a different kind of risk, when you and I spoke a couple of weeks ago, we talked about something called the tail of the dragon,
Oh, we
and
did.
you
Yeah.
told me that you liked it best on two wheels. So first of all, for those who have not heard of the tail of the dragon, can you explain what it is and why you like it on two wheels?
Okay, so first of all, we got to go rewind. I have not officially been on the tail of the dragon, but I'm
Okay,
going to tell
fair
you
enough.
about it. Okay, so but Tail of the Dragon is a world famous motorcycle road down in between Tennessee and North Carolina. It's 11 miles of 300 plus curves, right? So it's one of the most famous roads to ride motorcycles on. But I am an avid motorcyclist, so I do enjoy it. I missed out on the trip that the guys, I go on an annual trip with my guys every year, and they went down. I wasn't able to make it, but we have plenty of twisty, curvy roads in Pennsylvania. So I do get my taste of that. And we are planning a little bit of a cross country trip in August that we're pretty excited about.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Yeah, I know when we talked about it, I said, I like to go out. I have a convertible, so I like to do
Yeah.
that. And
Yeah.
that's when you brought up the motorcycle piece. But that in and of itself can be a risk, right? When you think about, a different kind of transportation.
Yeah. Look, I love it. My mother, my wife, daughter, they don't love it that I go out, but it is anybody that rides motorcycles, they get it. It's just, if I've had a day where I've got a lot going on and I really want to clear my head, I go out and I jump on the motorcycle for a bit and just get out on the road. Because it allows you just to sort of focus on what you're doing. I'm not thinking about other things. I'm just following the road and just sort of looking what's ahead and paying attention because you have to. And I absolutely love it. Yeah.
Did you ever end up getting to do the cross-country motorcycle road trip that you were going to do in
So
2020?
yeah, no, we have so mid-August, myself and three buddies, we're heading out. We're leaving Pennsylvania, and we're going to take a southern route. We're going to drop down into Virginia, West Virginia, through Kentucky, what are we, Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, lower part of Colorado into southern Utah, and we'll come and do a loop up around Salt Lake City and then back through Colorado and make our way home. So 2.5 weeks on the motorcycles.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, should be fun.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I'll get
Well,
there.
I was going to say we'll look forward to that trip report. But Mark, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for spending the time and
Yeah.
all of your wonderful insights. If people wanted to know more about you, get in touch with you, or learn more about Study Academy, where would you send them?
Yeah, it's Mark, M-A-R-C, at studyacademyusa.com. Cell phone 804-640-3004. Call me, send me a WhatsApp, text me. I'm always around. I love to hear from people, but super excited about what we're doing. Would love to hear from people and how we can help.
Awesome. We're going to put all that in the show notes to make you easily contactable. If that's a word, I don't know. Easy to
Worked for me.
contact.
It worked for me. Yeah.
Mark, we really appreciate the opportunity to chat with
Yeah.
you today. This was so fascinating learning about you as well as Ride Photo and about Study Academy. Just a great wide ranging conversation. And for everyone out there who is watching and listening, just remember, we are all attraction pros.